All right, traders, welcome to the end of day and end of week video. This is Christian from Tribeca Trade Group. Here's the performance for the week. Before we go through this, here's the risk disclaimer. Please go ahead and read the whole risk disclaimer here, but everything that I'm talking about in this video is for information purposes only. The video is education purposes only. So where did we finish up for the day first? And then we'll talk about the week, and then we'll talk a little bit about the month as well. I was looking at both the week's performance as well as where things are for the month. It's kind of startling when you look at the raw numbers, but nevertheless, I will go through all of that. Yes, so for the day, I mean, huge move. Futures were up overnight. There was the Russell rebalance today, so a lot of shifting and moving going on there. And then don't forget, next week we have end of what, the quarter or end of half the year already. Qs are, in some sense, it seems like it's been longer than just half a year. This market has been all over the place this year, but regardless, let's get to today's performance. Qs up 3.4%, SPY up 3.1%, IWM also right in line with those two, up 3.1%. Dow was a little bit under that. Microcaps underperformed a little bit. They were only up 1.6%. Geez, what a slouch today. The microcaps only up 1.6%. Bonds actually sold off today, but just kind of went unnoticed. I think without going too far into the weeds with bonds, if they kind of hang in here, I think that'll be good for the market. As long as rates don't keep jumping higher, on the long end of the curve as well as the short end of the curve, right? We know that we're going to have another Fed meeting too. I don't want to go too far into that because I think we've talked enough about the Fed. Let's talk about the price action a little bit more here. VIX was down 6%. For the day, back down to 27 after hanging around like in the low 30 range for a bit. We are back down to a 27 in the VIX. All right, best performers for the day. Kind of interesting, right? I mean, it's when you go over the numbers, as always, that's why I do the end of day review video. So because there's some things that kind of probably startled you, that you don't always see, especially like if you've got, a smaller watch list or even if you're just not watching all the different groups. But the metals and mining, after really getting like hit hard, and a lot of these groups kind of just, it stood out yesterday in the last couple of days, like how many areas were still breaking down. Even though we saw some really nice performance from growth stocks this week, I think the VUG ETF was up 9% for the week, but there were still areas that were going down. So that kind of came back in line. The XME metals and mining ETF. It actually did hold value. I can't believe that. Again, not something that I've kind of been out of this group for the last couple of weeks. But interesting, when you look at the weekly chart, the metals and mining actually held in there. They held the value area, 46.14. That's the breakout area. So I don't know. Maybe we'll come back to that group and analyze, of course, individual names to see what's going on there, if there's any possible setups. But remember with this group, big weekly bearish engulfing, and since then this thing has been in trouble. XLE, I think, was up today. Here's what the weekly bar looks like. All right. Again, I was still looking. There was some call activity in a couple of different names today. Oxy. There was another one, I think it was SU, that saw some call activity. Yesterday, we saw some calls go up in VET, which is a Canadian name. So they're still picking at these names. They're just right now, I think it's a matter, I'm personally letting, just like with the metals and mining group, just letting them cool off. Let them kind of do their thing for a little while. They got so overcrowded, some of these areas, that I think if you just let them cool off a little bit, maybe they will come back. But again, like I'm under the assumption that it just may take some time. PEJ, which is like travel, was very strong. Remember, we saw that big Jets, JETS, Jets. We saw that big Jets order earlier in the week, big calls. I think it was like $1 million call buyer. that worked. I think some of these names that we're seeing call buyers in, my philosophy that are in big downtrends, right, that are really beaten up. So for example, like yesterday, right, we saw a big call buyer in Lowe's, and I made this comment, and I could be wrong, but I always tell you how I would play it. VPOC takeout, right? So a lot of times you see these and you get a reversal off of an area of high volume that we haven't revisited. So this one reversed. And there was a lot of August calls that went up in lows. And I think one was a call spread. But hey, if you positioned it, if you noticed that yesterday and you got into the stock, the name is still very much in a downtrend. If you were in it and you got over 3%, I would be ringing the register. I would be saying, hey, name's in a downtrend. I managed to really, notice the option activity. It got me into a profitable trade. But this to me is, so it could, like, anything's possible. I'll be watching to see if this reverses trend. But for now, it was just ripe for it was ripe for a reversal. Basically a move back to the mean, reversion to the mean a little bit. What it does from now, I don't know. And I think, similar to the Jets trade that I was just talking about, same thing, right? You could be in this stuff very short term, take your profits, put the money in your pocket, and wait for these things to kind of get back to better looking trends, because most of them are still in downtrends. The internet group is very strong today, up 5%. Names just kind of kept on chugging along. Google had a big day today. The materials almost were up 4%, right? Cyber was up 4%. The cyber group just continued with that strength that we saw, particularly yesterday. Datadog, ZS, strong names. Software was up another 4% today. So very, very nice. And it was nice to see the semis get involved too, because they're another group that really got hit. Now, again, they're another one that needs a lot more work to do, right, to even get back to be like considered to be, and something of an investment for me, because it's way below 20-day moving average, the 50-day moving average. But again, for a trade, for an overnight trade, whatever, same thing. If you made money on some of these things, congratulations. All right. Let's talk about some other groups, right? Let's talk about the weekly performance now. So this is where it really gets interesting. Some of these groups, I send out a Substack article today. You can find that on my Twitter page. Also got sent out to members today, just talking about something that I've been talking about. If you've been watching my videos, just about every day over the last week, I've been talking about biotech, saying I think something interesting is going on here, right? I talked about whether or not it's a leading. I think that, this is my opinion, right? I think that biotech is a leading indicator. Usually when I see the biotechs participate, it usually means that there's some strong breath, right? That the market is kind of doing pretty well. So I view when biotech gets going, that it's a good sign. Let me explain this chart really quick, right? What I did was I didn't take the pure price of biotech. I first just looked at the relationship of XBI over SPY, right? So without looking at the yellow line, just look at the price action for the last 2 years and what happened in terms of this. This is where biotech really started to break down, right? This was all the way back in March of last year, right? Where it hit a high, it looked great, kind of came back, and then it never really reclaimed itself. So this and a few other areas of the market topped out, right, in the beginning of 2021, and they just never returned. Right. So this to me looks like the biggest, the biggest move that we've had relative to SPY in a while. So we'll see if this continues, right? It could be the start of something. It hasn't really broken the trend, but it's just had, 1 to 2 weeks of relative outperformance. So again, something that I think will really be interesting and perhaps a tell in terms of whether or not this market is really going to turn around, or is it just another bear market rally? And I think that's the question that everybody's trying to solve right now. They're just talking about it on CNBC. Are the lows in for the year? And it's really impossible to tell that question. I think you just have to be patient, monitor things like this, a riskier area of the market, which I view biotech as. Now you can kind of look at the yellow line, which is just the S&P. Take a look. This is why I think it's leading, right? There's a couple times where biotech turns first. And now clearly it did for last year, right? And that provided maybe a signal for months ahead that something wasn't right in the market. But this is another one, like even back in March of 2020, right? Biotech started to bottom first before the overall market, right? That's also what you want to see, right? When you're in one of these downtrends that we're in, you want to see some areas of the market that have been kind of somewhat beaten up, and you want to see them actually start to improve faster and do better things than what the overall index is doing. So when we look at this group, and again, I'll just kind of go over this really quick, but the thing again that jumps out was that this did not make a new low, right? So again, it's got a lot more work to do, but you got to start someplace, right? In terms of looking for things that are a little bit unusual. Certainly, the Chinese internet group, the Hang Seng was up again overnight. This was another 3.7% move. I think it looks very good, right? So I always talk about the CWeb. Somebody brought to my attention too today, CQQQ, which is tech for which is China tech. But going through, I came into the day long BABA. That worked pretty well. BABA was up about 5%. I did cut out of it a little bit earlier because I substituted. I've just liked this PDD chart better than BABA. I have nothing against BABA. I think it could still keep going, but it's below the 200-day moving average. And I would rather play with something trade something that's above the 200-day moving average. So I substituted that back into this. And we're continuing to see call buying in just different groups, right? ATHM, which is a name that, I can't remember if I've ever traded this name before. I'm sure I must have, but this is Auto Home. This saw a whole bunch of call positioning in this one, right? This is also above the 200-day moving average, not extended. And we'll see if this, again, it's been a long time going sideways. So maybe this starts to get going. I did get long this name today. What I've been doing is trying not to get overexposed in China because, again, it's another layer of risk. But I think it's very interesting. And then there was another name that saw call activity too, which, you just haven't seen call activity in something like this. But this is KE Holdings. Now, this is a little bit of a lower price name, right? But this is also above the 200-day moving average. Again, notice what happened here with some of these names. Big downtrend, sideways, took another leg lower, right? And is now starting to do something different, right? But if you follow this pattern, right, since everybody's kind of asking the question, oh, are the lows in for the year? I think, there could be a lot of different things that happen from here. One of which is we begin to go sideways for a little while, right? I think a lot of traders are looking for like a faster recovery than that, like some sort of V recovery. If we get that, that's awesome. Do I think that that's going to happen? No. I think we're going to do a lot of backing and filling. And one of the posts that speaking of Substack, one of the posts that I wrote, and I wrote it this weekend, was stuck in the middle. This is where we were basically over the weekend, below the June value area and above these lower VPOCs. And, I was thinking that, hey, it's a decent possibility that we could come down and get this last VPOC down here, and possibly this one down here too. Same thing on the weekly chart, right? There's this in here. Do we have to go in and tag that? No, we don't. And you can see we actually have a bullish engulfing on the weekly, right? You're going to have some resistance up here at 40.71, but what I try to do is be prepared for all outcomes. Right? I don't want to be doom and gloom. I don't want to be super bullish either. I want to trade the market that's in front of me, right? So I concentrate on relative strength, right? I don't, unless, I gave you a couple examples of names that I thought were ripe for a turn. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to position in them for investments, right? I'm going to look for the areas that are doing something different, right? That are just acting much better than that. I talked about Biotech. So by the way, we did close inside value. By the way, we didn't get rejected here. We did close inside value. Also, NASDAQ actually looks now a better picture. It made the move over the 20-day moving average. The 50-day moving average is going to be next. Now, again, that's going to be up here. But if we spend some time backing, going sideways a bit, this 50-day moving average is going to catch up with the price action. It's going to come down to it. And it might make it a little bit easier to get above the 50-day moving average. So again, open to all outcomes. This could be another bear market rally. We don't know. It could be the making of something bigger. And it could be something where we actually start to just go sideways for a bit too, right? I bring that outcome up because we've got a lot of things in front of us. End of month, we're going to have another report on inflation, PCE deflator, and then we're going to get another Fed meeting, right? So there's a lot of stuff going on. So let me talk about some other groups. But again, the NASDAQ above the 20-day moving average, I didn't think that we were going to get that strong of a move today. So if you thought we were going to be up 3.4%, congratulations. My main concern was whether or not we were going to turn the corner here and get inside value. A lot of people were asking me about that. Sometimes this is what happens. Once you finally break in, you really break in, right? And so that's basically what transpired through the overnight market when futures were up to what we saw transpire today. All right. And so let's talk about the healthcare group. So I talked about biotech, right? This chart looks, it's not that bad, XLV healthcare. But when you look at some of the names, some of the leaders that are happening in this, Merck made it basically back to, testing the previous highs, right? So that is relative strength, right? Bristol Myers, which really surprised me, right? Because I think I talked about this name in yesterday's video. I thought that this wouldn't make it through, but it did. It was up 1.6%, and that's a new all-time high in Bristol Myers. So Lilly also had a big move today and big move this week, and this shocked me. I thought this was going to, same thing with Bristol Myers. I thought that this was probably going to get stuffed here, right? And that's why I looked at this name yesterday, but didn't trade it. But really, really strong to make it through that and out to new highs. So, and then of course there's the UTHR, which everybody's looking because it's a bit more of a growth name. People like growth, right? This, inside day. Oh, and by the way, I thought this was notable too, with biotech, right? Notice where like this, if you wanted to get involved and, if you didn't want to chase yesterday, look at the value area, the top of value check back, right? This is where we opened, was weak, right? Little double bottom for the day on the top of the value area, right? So again, volume at price, and our study doing excellent, telling us where there's support, and you got a nice kiss off of that and a move back to basically where biotech started the day, which was higher. All right, so very interesting. Again, I started a trade yesterday in TMDX. I added to it. All right, so we want, when you start a trade, you actually want a little bit of a check back, right? So this I added right around the lows of the day. So this one I got a little bit lucky, and I didn't get lucky in every trade I did today, but that's okay. So a few other names. So we talked about a lot of the China names. We talked about healthcare, Amazon, right? There was this big XLY order that hit at the end of the day, which I thought was impressive. Right, XLY is consumer discretionary. It has not been showing relative strength. Look at this trade. $2 million, right? That went up. It says implied volatility went down, but this is the 160 calls for August. So somebody thinking that this possibly does get back in here. I don't think that they were sold. So again, pretty decent sized trade. Remember, Amazon and, sorry, I got the wrong chart up here. That makes more sense. Okay, here we go. Here's 160. It's been a long week. Sorry. I'm like, why does this not look right? Because I got the Amazon chart up. So XLY, right? So again, maybe this carves out, you know, possible double bottom, even though we did go a little bit lower. Interesting, we took out that VPOC from back in here. But this seems a bit more reasonable. So here's 160, right? So looks like somebody really positioning for the consumer discretionary names to keep going. If you look at this, right, since I can't remember what the percentage is off the top of my head, but Amazon is 23% of this, Tesla is 18%, throw in Home Depot, and you've got almost 50% of the ETF in those three names. Right. So again, you know, kind of interesting. And Amazon, I think will be a very interesting name to watch. Again, what drew me to Amazon, you know, and why it was on our watch list this week is because it didn't break down. Right. Again, I show this, I've been doing this for a couple of days now, so just bear with me. But here's what the S&P did, right? We broke lower back on 610. Amazon didn't do that. Right. So that is called some relative strength, some divergence in that name. And you've got a very easy level to watch. So here's how I'm approaching this market, right? When you've had the type of moves, like the object is not to bring out your crystal ball and say, oh, the lows are definitely in. All we're looking for is trades and a level to trade against, place where we know we're going to be right versus wrong. So if this starts to break above 116.64, I will try this trade. I've tried Amazon. I've been mostly day trading Amazon, but 116.64, right, that'll be a level to trade against. So if we open up, we have some continuation. I think that'll be a great level to trade against. And then it'll have to get through the 50-day moving average, which is right over here. But this will be, I think, a great name to watch, right? And this is the most I've been interested in Amazon. You know, I didn't like how frustrating this name was for a while, but maybe this can even like come back into here, like 135, and that's a pretty nice looking trade. All right, so that's Amazon. And Amazon was on our watch list for the week. So I give this, if you're not a member of Tribeca Trade Group, I provide, you know, some sort of watch list every weekend. Sometimes it's thinner than this. Sometimes I put more names on it, depending on how many things. You know, this is kind of insane performance. This doesn't happen every week, so don't think it does. But it's astounding to me, you know, how many names were way over 5% for the week. You know, especially like in the China group, XPEV was up 24%, NEO was up 15%, Futu was up 16%, DQ was up 15%. And I don't know why, but I guess I don't have PDD. Oh, PDD is up here. It was only up 7% for the week. Right. But yeah, I had a lot of China names on here. Again, sticking with the, you know, where I'm seeing the relative strength. A few other names I wanted to just go over. I think, you know, Monster was a name that I put on. This worked pretty well today. You know, nice continuation. Monster was holding up pretty well in here, right? It did go lower, so maybe a false breakthrough. I know a lot of people look at the Celsius. It's testing that 67 level. This was acting very well too for a while. Right. And, you know, it's certainly a name to keep your eye on around that 200-day moving average. Also F1, if you're an F1 fan, they re-signed with ESPN, right, back above the value area. So again, level to trade against 63, right? See if it works. If it doesn't work, take it off, right? Don't have to figure out if the market's going to make, you know, if the low in the market is in, right? Trade the setups. All right. A few other names. Alta, I ditched this name today. I just felt like I was carrying too many names. And this is a high price stock, but this is a name to watch. I think next week. Remember, it had good earnings, you know, jumped very nicely on earnings. So I think that's another one to kind of watch in the consumer discretionary. Speaking of consumer discretionary, one that you probably haven't heard from a while, Vive. Look at this thing. Right? Remember, a lot of these names had good earnings. That just the market was in a very bad place. right? Had a real nice earnings reaction, got above the 50-day moving average, came in and tested the top of value. And look at the move that this thing has been making, right? And you're starting to see this out of a bunch of different names. Same thing like ZS, Datadog, they had really, really nice weeks this week. I like the ZS. I actually did go long this in the TTG trend portfolio. This made a higher low, right? And it's testing the 50-day, just barely got above the 50-day moving average. Again, where will I know that this trade will be wrong? If it breaks back below the value area like it did last time. All right. Datadog will have a test, 107.60. I'll tell you the snowflake, which I traded one day this week, watch 154.21. I mean, huge move for this name, 120 to 154 in a week, helped by an upgrade this week. DT is another name too, right? Here was the low here, higher low, and trying to basically carve this out. I'm switching to a little bit more cheaper tech, IBM, acting pretty well. There was also a number of insurance names that did pretty well today too, from what I saw. Progressive was up nicely. Somebody asked me about this name today. It was up 5.6% today. There's a couple other insurance names too, but it's been a long week, so I think I'm going to end it here. Make sure that any of these posts that I put out, if you like receiving these articles, I think I've put out 3 so far of these Substacks. You could just make sure that you click on, you click on here, share, subscribe. That's the best way to get involved. They're free for now. I'll continue to do that a little bit for now for free. But by definitely, if you like those, don't hesitate to let me know. Or if there's something else that you want to see in these, don't hesitate to let me know. And if you want to be a member of Tribeca Trade Group, just go right to our website and sign up there. I think that there's going to be, one of the things that I've said from time to time is, whether or not what we do here and with the rest of the month, even if the pensions have to buy more for the end of the month, I think that this year you're going to find some really good opportunities, but you just have to be patient, right? Even if the lows are not in for this year, I still think let it play out and you're going to find some really good trading opportunities, right? And really good investments. But like with any correction, any bear market, you've got to be patient with the things, right? All right, guys, that's it for today. Have a great weekend. And members, you'll have the normal rundown for me over the weekend. And we'll go from there, guys.